Hey yo, welcome back to another episode of Ninja Black Talk Some Shit About Something. That's what it's called for now. So on this channel, if you peep the other one, I reviewed a movie. If I review movies, it's probably going to be mostly horror movies or action movies. That's what I'm into. But also on this channel, I want to try to review some music, because I would be nothing without music. Music is life, and life is music, and the bass is the treble. So I'm going to review on this channel movies, music, books, everything in between. And I also want to make clear, maybe I'll add a little disclaimer at the beginning of every video, that a lot of what I'm saying here is strictly my opinion. I do not make any intention to defame or desecrate or discriminate or diss or whatever. I'm talking shit about a thing, not necessarily on anybody's reputation. Any connections I make to any random things are just going to be purely speculation and ponderment on my part, not necessarily any fact or accusation or anything like that. And it's important that I get that out, because what I'm going to talk about today, I got a lot of speculations. You know what I'm saying? What we are talking about today is the one and only man, Teddy Pendergrass. Teddy Pendergrass is the mother freaking man. R.I.P. to Teddy P. Teddy Pendergrass is known as the Black Elvis. He's known as one of the original, smoothest OG baby maker jammers ever. Also, a hell of a boogier. I would never call anything that he ever did disco, but upbeat and jamming. Kind of like some of Heat Wave's stuff. I wouldn't necessarily consider a lot of that disco just because it's super upbeat. He's got some super crooner slow jams, and he's also got some funky stuff. A lot of his sound and everything that he's ever accomplished in music comes from being associated with Philadelphia International Records, obviously from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They are the sound of the 70s, at least especially as far as soul, R&B, black music is concerned. For me, my favorite label as far as R&B goes. You got Motown and you got tons of other labels, but to me none of them hold a candle to Philadelphia International, especially their biggest star, in my opinion, right next to the OJs as the group. Solo, we got Teddy P. I won't go too much into Teddy Pendergrass's whole biography. If you want, his autobiography is a great read. There's a great documentary on him on Starz or Showtime made by the BBC called If You Don't Know Me. That's a really great documentary if you're into documentaries, if you're into Teddy Pendergrass, if you're into American culture and old school fresh music, check that out. I want to talk about this album today because, in my opinion, this album is super underrated. So nice, I bought it twice. This album right here, This One's For You. This album is a very, very unique and interesting album as far as Teddy Pendergrass's discography. Teddy Pendergrass has had a long and awesome career, to be honest. One of my favorite artists of all time, hence why I felt like I want to do this video. Most people will break down Teddy Pendergrass's career and his discography into three main sections. The first one being as the lead singer of Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. No, the lead singer is not Harold Melvin. It's Teddy Pendergrass. And after he wasn't getting paid enough, he said, "Peace, I'm out. I'm getting paid solo." And that's his other part of his discography, is as a solo artist. In my opinion, the greatest Teddy era is probably my favorite Teddy album right here. Then also, his third era of his discography can be broken down post-accident. So, what kind of accident do I mean? Well, I'll break it down real quick for you. Basically, what happened was Teddy P was chilling with his woman, and he met another woman. And his woman was like, I want to go home. He's like, all right, bet. I'm going to take you home, but we taking this girl with us because I'm going to drop you off and kick it with her. Bruh. And after he drops the homegirl off, he's cruising down this crazy windy Need for Speed type path down in Philadelphia, PA. And the Rolls Royce, the brakes, the steering wheel, something malfunctioned, went all crazy, skeeting everywhere all over the road. He crashes his car into a couple trees. His head bounces up and hits the roof of the car and crashes his neck, breaks a bunch of bones in his spine, and leaves my man Teddy as a quadriplegic. Basically, his arms still kind of worked a little bit, but from the chest down, he was done for.
He apparently lost control of his car and slammed into 2 trees early this morning. Singer Teddy Pendergrass is in critical condition right now.
So that was a terrible, terrible accident. The gal was unhurt. And if you watch the documentary, you can fill in your own opinions about that lady. I'm not going to say nothing about her here, but that's interesting in itself. After Teddy's accident, March 18th, 1982, once everybody figured out that the Black Elvis, the sex symbol of the 70s, who was 32 years old, at his peak, at his prime, at his, he had just had, his Thriller moment. He was about to go, and the world would have never been the same as far as R&B. But unfortunately, the headline spread that Teddy Pendergrass, at 32, was in a tragic accident and will never walk again. Damn, that's rough. Super rough. I feel it for my boy, because that's rough. I'm only going to say this one more time. My disclaimer is, I don't mean to disparage, besmirch, or bismarck anybody's name, reputation, or whatever. Any theories that I have that I'm not citing as a fact is purely speculation at my point, and no means actually represents the truth or anything like that. Okay? Last time I'm going to say that. But so, somebody at the record label who realized that Teddy might never walk again, Teddy might never sing again, but he's still under a contract for a certain amount of money or a certain amount of years or a certain amount of albums. So they Michael Jacksoned him 30 years before Michael Jackson, and they put out, which is not in the Melvin era, not in the solo era, not in the post-accident era, a weird purgatory, which is this album again. This one's for you. And also, he had another one that was put out, I think, within about a year later, which was very similar, which I'll touch on later. Look at this fool, man. That is one handsome dude in the pimped out tuxedo, soaking up the love of all of his fans. Back here, he looks like he's having a good time. Not sure what all these shadows are going on over here. I probably could have found a better picture for that. One thing that's really interesting is this album came out only 4 or 5 months after his accident. So normally when Gamble and Huff, who are the main musical masterminds behind all the music that comes out of Philadelphia International Records, normally Kenny Gamble usually writes a little blurb on the album saying, touching on some philosophical idea about what the theme of the album's about. But on this one, it's presented as being very personal. So they gave Teddy the personal touch where he says on the back here, "To all my fans, to everyone who wrote, called, or asked about me, I appreciate your prayers and thoughts, however transmitted to me. It gave me strength when I needed it, and I'll always be grateful. Soon, I'll be able to see you in person. Until then, this one's for you." It's going to be the title of the album. There's also a track on the album entitled This One's For You, which I'll get to. I want to break down each of the songs one by one, just give my little 2 cents on it, and kind of put together some kind of a conspiracy theory almost, or maybe just some kind of underhanded action that might have been going on. I don't want to accuse anybody of anything, it's just my speculation. This One's For You. This album came out 4 months after Teddy's accident. So that lets me know that this album was not already planned. This album doesn't have, as far as I know, any new songs that were written or recorded for this album. This album definitely feels like a B-side album, like a Lost Vaults in the Can tracks that didn't ever make it to any album. Some of the songs on here, you can definitely feel like they came from different eras of Teddy's solo career. This album feels a lot like Michael, which was also put out, I think, less than a year after Michael Jackson passed, where it's a lot of B-sides, it's a lot of unreleased tracks, nothing that was necessarily made for the album, in similar even like to the Escape album, which came out a couple years afterwards, where they're maybe slightly remixed, but I feel like in this album, it was in such a rush, and in that time of analog, they just were like, put it out. So, on one hand, it's really cool that we got a new album. Everybody's stressed, everybody's worried, everybody's like, oh my god, Teddy! And they should have been. So it was, I'm sure, I wasn't alive in 1982, but really nice for the fans to be able to get something to comfort them, to hold them over. But, you know, I don't know any of the people behind the scenes who was making decisions, and maybe some of the things that I'm looking at now, you know, in retrospect, might not have ever crossed a single person's mind. And I hope not. But some of this shit seems a little bit salty. So I want to get into the album, break it down track by track, let you know my opinions about it, and some of the shit that seems a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Teddy Pendergrass, This One's For You, 1982. This album kicks off with a funky little, almost kind of disco-y, little funky little ditty, little jam called I Can't Win for Losing. And, you know, it's kind of a interesting concept, and even in the song he describes, like, you might be totally confused or put off or not understand what the hell I'm talking about, but I know what I'm talking about, so don't worry about it. Which is kind of interesting and funny. I feel like Teddy always had a really good sense of humor. He was always very conscious of what he was doing and what he was saying. Even though I don't think he wrote hardly any lyrics, if at any, ever at all in his life. He's really, really good just with the presence, with the power, with the soul, with the spirit, with the voice, amazing voice and the energy and just the way he's able to emote. And a lot of that goes back to Gamble and Huff as well. Interviews have talked about how Gamble and Huff, how they run their label, Philadelphia International Records, is that they would make all of their artists, including a top-tier AAA star like Teddy Pendergrass, rehearse these songs over and over and over until they knew it like the back of their hand before they would even let them go into the recording booth. So I think that really paid off. I think that's a really good tip for any musicians out there. Never ever record a song that you still have to read the lyrics to, because it's just the best way to get the most amount of emotion when you can just pour it out and not have to feel like you're reciting it. And he definitely has that in spades. So the song's kind of fun. It's just an upbeat way to start the album. But it starts right off the bat with a kind of sick irony, I would say. Most of the songs on this album, and there's 8 songs, which is typical for a Teddy album, typical for a lot of R&B albums back in the day. 8 to 10 songs. We're spoiled now with like 15, 20 songs on an album. Back then, 8 to 10 was normal, but because out of 8 or 10 songs, you might have 3 or 4 like bangers, and even the rest, the B-sides, were like just the ones that people slept on. The people that bought the 45s, they got their money's worth. The people that bought the albums, people on the 45s don't know shit about what's going on at all. But that's a big fan. That's why I'm a big fan of cassettes. Cassettes are similar to records. Obviously, they're a lot more portable, a lot more durable, but it doesn't allow for skips. You can rewind it and fast forward, sure. But the idea of a cassette is similar to a vinyl, where you can just put it on and absorb the whole experience. And that's what I appreciate about Philadelphia International Records. That's what I appreciate about a lot of my favorite artists. And this album is just really underrated, but really interesting. That's why I want to talk about it. But getting back to the part about the irony, right? The song's called I Can't Win for Losing. So the song's basically about how he's really confident that he can do it, that he can make it. He's independent, he's on his own, nobody's going to tell him no, nobody's going to slow him down or stop him at all. But shit's always got to come and trip him up and fuck him up and hold him back and screw him over. So no matter how hard he's doing what he's got to do, the world's always trying to do something against him. And that, to me, is the first drip of irony. In 1982, that might have just went way over everybody's head. But in 2023, I feel like it hits a little bit different. Especially just knowing the extent of the accident and knowing what I'm able to speculate about, what I'm able to gather about what happened professionally within the industry, within the label, with Teddy and everything like that at this time, looking back. Maybe I'm just cynical. Maybe I'm just, like talking shit. But it seems to me, I can't win for losing. I could do everything I want to do if the world would just quit fucking with me. And that seems like, a little too on the nose almost. We move on to track number 2. Track number 2 is obviously the title track of the album. This one is For You. It's a beautiful, slow, orchestral, emotional, big, over-the-top ballad. Song's written by Barry Manilow, and it's towards the end, seems like it's directed towards the fans. Seems like it's this one's for you, or for me. This one's for me. Just basically about how the trajectory of his life, all the things he's done, the things he's seen, the things he's had the opportunity to do and experience, all because of the fans loving and supporting him. It's a touching, beautiful, big orchestral ballad just about being grateful and appreciative and showing the love that he gets, trying to give some back to the fans. It seems like that's the way the song kind of ties the bow on itself towards the end. I may be wrong, but in the documentary it talks more about how this song has a different meaning. At the beginning, he has a little monologue about how he doesn't think that people would like or appreciate or understand this song, but that even if he's not great at singing it, he's going to keep singing it because of how much it means to him to be able to share his gratitude. And this song actually is about, or he's singing it for, his ex-girlfriend. Now hang on, because I got a little bit about to say about this shit right here. So, Teddy Pendergrass, as he was coming up as his solo artist he was really getting big, had this girlfriend named Taz. I never met Taz. I don't know Taz. I never will meet Taz. I never seen, too many like interviews or anything with Taz. But I've dated some crazy, sexy broads in my life. And she looks and seems like she fits the bill. In my experience, a lot of times in life, the crazier they are, the hotter they are. Maybe it's the other way around. The hotter they are, the crazier they are. And I'm looking at you, Christina. You know that. So let me give you this little bit of what I'm trying to speculate here. So Taz was Teddy Pendergrass's main manager for his music career, right at the time that he was like super blowing up. And he had all these people around him, as one does as they're rising to their superstardom, surrounded by, lawyers, agents, managers, leeches, and all these other people that are around all the time. But his woman was his manager. And from what I understand, she was crazy and fine. And I think the way it seems is that Teddy was just 100% totally, absolutely nose wide open sprung on this girl. To the point where she had him around his little finger. To where, yeah, he might listen to his agent or this person or that person or that person, but ultimately she would raise a fuss and start a fire and burn everything down if she didn't get her way. Which seemed like probably she was trying to look out for his best interest, but as his woman, I feel like it was a conflict of interest to where she could probably, overstep her boundaries a little bit, even as his manager. So what had happened was, in 1977, Taz was coming home one night, walking up to her own front door and the hood or wherever in Philadelphia, and somebody walked up on her and just blew that girl away. R.I.P. Taz. I ain't trying to hate. It's what it is. So, her murder has officially remained unsolved. Taz's murder is still to this day in a cold case file of unsolved murders. Now, there's a lot of people out there that might, say a little bit about this or maybe a little bit about that, Some people have the opinion that the Black Mafia had something to do with it. I see them as some kind of, shadowy Nation of Islam type of group that their best interest is to have more power than her over this young black man who's exploding in popularity in financial departments as well as in megaphone departments. So basically, if you're a young, up-and-coming black man and you all of a sudden have a huge platform where you're making huge amounts of money, there's always going to be somebody or some organization that will have a vested interest in trying to get in good with you so they can try to promote whatever their agenda is under your banner. And I feel like it seems like, and other people have kind of walked around, danced around the idea that maybe these guys had something to do with the murder of Teddy's woman. And Teddy has denied it a million times that he knows nothing, he heard nothing, never heard of nothing, and I'm not going to argue with the dead man. I'm going to let it be and say that he had nothing to do with it. But I definitely do know that he loved that woman. He loved that woman with everything. And how do I know? Because the hotter she is, the crazier she is, and the more sprung you are on her, the more control she's going to take over your life. And the amount of control that she had would let me know, and seeing her pictures, how beautiful she is, that he was sprung and being controlled on a certain level for sure. So being sprung basically means that he's totally in love with her. So I feel like he recorded this song, This One's For You, for her. And if I'm not mistaken, he sang it at her funeral. And so this one is a beautiful song, but it seems like there's just a little more to it than just appreciation for the fans. And the whole reason for that whole other story about the Black Mafia, I don't know, hopefully where I'm at, but before Teddy Pendergrass had his car accident, which crippled him for life and damn near killed him, he had been complaining several times about how his car's, the brakes weren't working, the power steering wasn't working, the tires were flat. All these different little sabotage things. Seemed like he had to get his brakes fixed and different stuff checked out more than once. And I feel like, maybe Black Mafia, Illuminati, whatever you want to do, people that, just like in a Michael Jackson situation, when there's a bunch of people that have a lot to gain from your image and your status, and if you don't want to cooperate, they'll just get you out of the way, and then all the lawyers can just take care of it from there. I don't want to get into any Michael Jackson conspiracies here. Maybe that's for another video. But I think it just seems a little too convenient, the way that it went down with his woman, and the way that it went down with his car, and the way that this album was put together and put out less than 6 months later. And, it's not his best album, and that's probably why, it's underrated or slept on. And, maybe a lot of people don't really know about it that much. Maybe it definitely didn't have any hits on it. And so maybe a lot of people don't know about this album. But for me personally, this was the first Teddy album that I ever purchased and listened to like all the way through. Like, I always loved all the classics, all the hits, Close the Door, Turn Off the Lights, TKO, dozens others that you and your mama and everybody know. But he became one of my favorite artists, and I found this record, I bought it, listened to it all the way through, and became a huge fan. So, I want to talk about it. All that is purely speculation, and please, if you're the Black Mafia, don't fuck with me, dog. You know what I'm saying? Please. After this one's for you, the next song on the album is entitled Lovin' You Was Good. Another more upbeat, funkier, little kind of a dance song. Teddy's kind of weird. He has a lot of like funky, upbeat dance songs that are actually like salty as hell. Like on his first album, he has a song, I Don't Love You Anymore. And it's like, I don't love you anymore. No, 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 not like before. And it's like, damn, that's what we're jamming to? And this one's almost in the same vein. It's kind of corny, but it's Lovin' You Was Good. And so basically it's kind of a song about how he regrets breaking up with a girl because, and I've been there too, Teddy, where you're in a relationship with a girl and she's probably a lot more invested in you or in the relationship than you are in her. So you're like, this is cool or whatever, but like there's no excitement. There's no challenge. There's no challenge to the relationship where the girl's basically almost worshiping you. And so he went off and he played the field and he did his own thing. And I've been there, Teddy. You go out there, you mess with a bunch of hoes and you're like, that's it. Damn, bro. I probably should have stayed with that girl that worshiped me, because even though it was kind of like, boring or whatever, loving her was really easy. If a relationship is what I want, that was probably like the perfect relationship. And it didn't require any amount of work or effort really on my part. And she did everything I needed her to do. And I just threw her away. Damn. Bummer. But saying all that and And loving you was good like candy to a baby. Loving you was good, loving you was easy. So it's a little corny, it's a little fun. It's definitely a change of tone after This One's For You. And maybe in the irony department of this album being released right after his accident is that loving him was probably a lot easier before his accident. And now a lot of people having a hard time really being there for him. Which, may or may not have been on the minds of the people that made the album. I don't know, but could be. The next song, now this one is a deep cut. The next song, track 4 on the album, is This Gift of Life. Fun fact, This Gift of Life is included as a bonus extra track on the TP album, which was his second to last album before the accident. And it definitely has that tone. It definitely feels like it could have fit on that album. Like I said, they rushed this album out. It's a lot of B-sides. It's a lot of songs that didn't make the cut on other albums. And this one definitely feels like it belonged on TP. And I feel like probably would have done better on that album, because that album, the main only hit, it's a great album. The main only hit was the Love TKO. And so this probably could have done better on that. This Gift of Life, written by Gamble and Huff, is another slow ballad of just very emotional, kind of almost over-the-top imagery about gratitude. Similar to This One's For You. It feels really similar, so it makes sense why they put kind of an upbeat song in between, so they didn't feel like they blended together too much. This song is basically the most ironic, tragic song that they included on this album. So the song is literally just a big, long list about how much he loves and appreciates life. And for him to 4 months before this song came out, become a quadriplegic, where there is interviews and stuff talking about how suicidal he was and how sad and depressed and totally given up on life he was once he found out he became a quadriplegic, including this song, This Gift of Life, which talks about gratitude and uplifting peace and happiness and gratefulness for being alive and appreciation. Everything in life that he is privileged to enjoy simply because he's alive. It really twists that irony knob to the point, almost, knowing the background on everything, almost feels like, oof, it was not, I feel like probably at the time especially, a little too soon. It's a beautiful song. I love the song, and sometimes when I am feeling down, this song can really shift my perspective and help me out. One thing though, Teddy, I'm never going to agree with you about, at the very end, he goes on a list about saying, I love this, I love that, I love the rain, I love the sunshine, I love the springtime. Then he almost ruins the whole song when he goes, I love the snow. Bruh, I almost gotta skip the song every time right before he's about to say that part, because if you know Ninja Black, I don't do the snow, bro. I love that song. It's a great song. It's an emotional song. It's a powerful song. I can't sing that lyric though, Teddy. Sorry. You're on your own with the snow. Moving on to track number 5 is a song called Tell Me That You Love Me. This song is also written by Gamble and Huff. Again, they did probably 80% of every Teddy Pendergrass song, even including during the Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes era. They definitely are responsible for the Philadelphia sound. They're responsible for the sound of the 70s, and they're responsible for the Teddy sound. There's a couple other producers on this album, a couple others sprinkled out throughout his discography, and then I want to get to afterwards as well. But this song, Tell Me That You Love Me, is another slow, emotional, drawn out, over the top love song. This one is finally about a woman. I've had a love song about life, a love song about the fans, a love song about the girl that he broke up with that he shouldn't have, and now a love song finally for a woman that he actually loves. There's some back and forth parts, there's some monologues where Teddy's kind of telling his woman, he's like, bitch, you don't know what love is. You don't understand love. You must be confused. Because if you knew what it is, I wouldn't have to explain it to your ass. Let me just go ahead and explain it to your ass. And then by the end of the song, he's like, now that you understand, now tell me you love me. You been talking all this shit, yipping and I'm blibber blabber, all running at the mouth about you love me? Well, now that you actually know what love is, now say it. And I feel like, this is a reasonable thing for someone like Teddy to say, especially in his position. He's surrounded by groupies and sycophants and people who just say, I love you, Teddy, I love you. And it's not unreasonable for him to be like, are you sure about that, though? And Will Smith, who actually I'm a big fan of his as well, has a similar song on his album, Lost and Found, where it's like, you say you love me, but are you sure you do? Do you know what that means? And I think it's a really good concept, especially for somebody in their position of fame. I think that's probably something that comes up a lot, and I think it's probably something that becomes more and more valuable as you get more famous. When you're first starting to come up and people tell you they love you, then it's like, oh shit, all right, okay, cool. And then eventually you hear it so many times that you're like, that's a red flag, bro. So it's a really good song. I wouldn't say this is like a wedding song or anything like that. It could have been, but I think the talking parts and where it kind of lulls down a lot, it kind of it almost takes a break from the song every time it pauses for Teddy to give it to you straight, talking to you. But it's definitely one of those songs, where you're falling in love with a girl and you both got the Twitter patient happening. You got the butterflies, you got the goosebumps, you got the butterflies in your tummy and everything's going sweet and good. And this is one of those songs where you just sit, you turn on some Teddy, and you stare each other in the eyes. Just tell me that you love me, baby. This is that kind of song. It's a good song. I liked it. This is definitely Teddy written all over it. Gamble and Huff all over it. Smooth entry. This is a fire song. Track 6 on the album is It's Up to You What You Do With Your Life. This is a really positive And again, an upbeat song. This album feels like it goes back and forth. Upbeat ballad, upbeat ballad. They want you to dance, they want you to chill. They want you to dance, they want you to smooch. They want you to dance, they want you to be sad. All these back and forth, back and forth. One thing that's really, really awesome about Gamble and Huff, and just about, I would just say, Teddy albums in general, I mean, Philadelphia International albums, obviously, all together, they're all pretty much the brainchildren of Gamble and Huff, is the structure, the sequencing of an album. It's one reason why I appreciate the art of the album so much. One person that comes to mind is like Dr. Dre, who really has like mastered the concept of the flow of an album. That you push play on track one, and by the time you get to the last track, it's almost like watching a movie. You feel like you've experienced a full body of work and on the full ride, beginning, a middle, and end. It's all there. This album definitely feels more like just a hodgepodge, almost like a mixtape. It's like just a collection of songs, not as structured as the album. And again, saying that based on this big back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. One thing that I really like about Teddy albums is that usually they pretty much go on a trajectory to where they have the sexy, smooth, slow songs to start. Then they have a couple of the upbeat, dancing type songs. Then they come back down for the heartbreak and the pain and the emotion. And then he sends you out the door, busting a sweat with some one more last funky dance tune. And that's how I feel like that makes a good album experience for me. But again, this one's kind of all over the place. But back to the song. It's up to you what you do with your life. And this song is super optimistic, uplifting, positive, reinforcing. It's basically what I feel like black people need to be hearing today. But even for 1982, it was pretty corny. It's a good song because I love Teddy, because I love Philadelphia soul sound. But anybody else just hearing it, probably just randomly or for the first time, might be like, yeah, this shit's pretty cheesy. But if you get past that first layer of cheese, you listen to it like the second or third time, and you just absorb the message of it, it's really, really positive. And for me, I feel like it's telling, I think, anybody, but even especially at the time for black people, that like, yo, don't let the bullshit get you down. Don't let the haters get in your way. Don't be overruled by your feelings, by your emotions, by your reaction. Yo, grab the steering wheel and focus. It's up to you what you do with your life. Nobody else can do shit but you. You're in control of yourself, of your mind, of your emotions, of your feelings, of your future, and what you want to do. Is what you want to do cry, bitch, whine, complain, do crimes, and go to jail? Well, that's up to you. But if you want to succeed and have a happy, good, awesome life, that's also up to you, because it's your life. I think that's really encouraging for all people, and especially for probably who the target audience of this album was, most Teddy fans. I think it's a good message, and I feel like, again, in the irony department a little bit, where it's up to you what you do with your life. You can't be controlled by your emotions. Everything is up to you, and you're in control. And if you want to, just go and do it, and you can do it because it's what you want. It's your life. That song to be put out by somebody in a wheelchair who's paralyzed from the chest down, who wants to kill themselves but actually can't if they wanted to, because it's no longer up to him what he does with his life. thank God through years of therapy and support and care and love from his family and his children, and later on he got married and everything else, he was able to overcome to where he continued to put out records, perform concerts. He did Broadway plays, from what I understand. He wrote a book. It's a great book. And he did a lot of great things with his life. He finally made that decision and chose to do that. But at that time, less than 6 months after his accident, to have this song on there, "It's up to you what you do with your life," peak irony. Because at that point, he had no control over his emotions, over his circumstance, even over his own body. And so, again, not trying to say that anybody necessarily was trying to, think anything was funny or cute about building this playlist for this record. But it seems a little salty for the timing. So track number 7, the second to last song on this album, Teddy Pendergrass's 1982 "This One's For You," is a song called "Don't Leave Me Out Here on the Road." And it's more of a country type song, which is within Teddy's wheelhouse. He's had quite a few country-ish sounding songs, just a lot more like plain grand piano and acoustic guitar type of vibes. It's a slow, kind of a sweet song, but it's more like a heartbreak, Basically, the song "Don't Leave Me Out Here on the Road" is just a metaphor for please don't leave me. And so, if you know anything about Teddy, he was kind of a playa, and he probably made quite a few mistakes in relationships and with ladies and stuff. But as we'll get to in the next song, he's often found himself begging women to stay with his ass. Songs about heartbreak are very cathartic, especially somebody who's going through that, who writes or performs the song about heartbreak. It can be very therapeutic. And then also, if you're going through a heartbreak, it's cathartic, it's therapeutic to be able to know, okay, I'm not alone. I'm not the only person that's ever felt this way. But then even, just on a normal day, just push and play on the album and letting it roll. Everybody's been there. They've been through a breakup where it wasn't their choice, or had, somebody do them wrong or do them dirty or whatever. We've all experienced heartbreak at some point in our life. And so it's nice to be able to reflect on that and not necessarily have to dwell in it, but to allow it to just be expressed in a healthy way. And again, in the irony department, and forgive me, Teddy, and please, anybody out there in the comments who's saying, I just got the sick and twisted mind, that's probably fine. I am here to just talk some shit about some shit. I am a huge Teddy Pendergrass fan. I love Teddy Pendergrass to death. I got pretty much all his albums. I got his book. I'm going to get a tattoo for him. I got a bunch of tattoos we'll talk about some other time. That's my man. But the irony of "Don't Leave Me Out Here on the Road," as a quadriplegic, that could be a actual real concern. And I don't know if you're going to go to hell if you laugh about that. And I don't know if anybody was thinking about that when they put this together. Anyways, the final track is a song written by Ashford and Simpson, who have always seemed like they intersect into Teddy's career throughout his life, and especially they played a big part afterwards in his post-accident musical career, and they were the ones that really encouraged him to get back on stage and perform music on stage, albeit in a wheelchair with limited projection abilities from just being paralyzed, not being able to fully belt out his singing voice like he used to. They played a big part in his confidence to return to the stage and in supporting him and helping him out throughout his whole career, it seems like. And so this song is written by them. It's a song called Only to You. And so it's kind of a ballad, and it's kind of a dance song. It's kind of a love song, but it's kind of like a confession song. It's a really weird way to end the album. And, you know, maybe this is geared towards like the fans, right? Like, I can only say these things to you. I love you. I'll tell you the truth. I'll be real with you. Maybe as the fans, that to me feels more like the fan-directed title, This One's For You, more than the actual song, This One's For You. It's kind of a weird way to end the album. Again, only 8 tracks. This whole album is definitely worth a listen. Again, main reason why I made this video is I feel like it's super underrated and super slept on. I would definitely give it I would give it 3 stars out of 5. But I still want to talk about it a little bit more. So what's interesting too about this album, again, the obvious cash in about, we're screwed. Our number 1 guy is out of commission. He took a love TKO. But we still got him under contract. We still owe him all this money. We got to do something. So they rushed out this album, again, 4 or 5 months after his accident. Rushed out this album, lots of B-sides, just a mix of songs. They put out another album, I think, within a year after that as well, again, which is even more noticeably just a hodgepodge of songs, just a mashup of some B-sides and stuff that was sitting around. And it definitely feels like he had nothing to do with it. You know, business is business and the show must go on, I understand that. But the thing that bugs me is that they put out these 2 B-side albums immediately after his accident, and then they drop him from the label. And to me, I feel like Teddy built that label. Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, I believe, was Philadelphia International's first act that they actually really were signed and working with and pushing to be number 1s, to be successful. And then after he went solo, he left the group. Basically, the label chose Teddy over Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. I think they still worked with him for 1 more album, but they took Teddy's side. And Teddy took them to the moon. Obviously, I can't downplay Billy Paul, the OJs, and so many other great, amazing, fantastic artists that I could go on and make videos about all on their own, about the legacy of Philadelphia International. And again, I'm not saying anybody in particular or even the label itself made any of these decisions that I'm saying feel kind of salty. But they put out the 2 albums. They dropped him from the label after he was at the peak of his career. Imagine Michael Jackson put out Off the Wall, put out Thriller, put out Bad, and then before he went full white, everybody was like, oh shit, what are you about to do next? And then he died or got in a car accident, whatever, and everybody just washed their hands of him. The only reason why Michael Jackson seems like so much more of a significant guy is because he had the crossover. He was on all the MTV, he was on the pop, he was on the top 40, he was on everything. Teddy Pendergrass, successful and extremely popular, but on the R&B side, which at that time still pretty much meant specifically to a black audience. And so maybe there just wasn't as much vested interest as there is nowadays with keeping a black audience happy or making any kind of sacrifice for a black artist, which is really, really tragic. Even in 1982, 83, when the other one came out, to just completely drop him and wash your hands of him is really a bummer. And so later on, Teddy went out to put out 5, 6 more albums. His last album that he made a couple years before he died and retired officially was a Christmas album. He never really quite had that same that X factor that made him so successful and awesome before the accident. He did have a couple of hits. His main hit was the song Joy off this album, Joy. And then also Love Language was the first album that he came out with post-accident. And he had the song called In My Time, which is a beautiful song. You can look up the video on YouTube. It was basically his first coming out to the world as being in a wheelchair. And it's a very emotional song. Teddy makes me very emotional. I wanted to make this video today because, Teddy, this one's for you. And I feel like this one's for you. If you're watching, you should check it out. Give it a try. If you like R&B, if you like soul, you should probably dig it. Even if you don't dig R&B and soul, I think it'd be worth taking a chance, 40 minutes out of your life, to appreciate one of the greatest to ever do it. So, thanks for sticking with me. Do all that stuff YouTube wants you to do or whatever. And check me back out next time. Know what I'm saying?
Nothing else,